Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris over here. I am the head system trader here at MacRops. Also, former military guy, and I've been a government contractor for the U.S. government for over 2 decades now. Um, in addition to my systematic trading, I do security consulting. Spend a lot of time in the security space uh, globally, and so I have a bit of a I wouldn't say I wouldn't say that I have like any insights. I don't have any insights, any special insights here. Nothing I'm going to talk about here is classified uh, in any way. If it is, I'm talking about it and from a non-classified capacity, so it's purely speculation. Uh, but first things first. If it's news, if it's something you're reading about, I'm reading about it, it's something we're seeing on TV or reading on Twitter or anything like that, that's not intelligence. That's just news. Intelligence is stuff that is close held. Like I have intelligence on this scenario. When I share that information, it becomes like known information, which is more of a news thing. So by the time it gets to you and I watching the news and hearing these sort of things, it seems like we're getting this great insight. But at the same time that we're getting this great insight, the whole world is getting it too. So it's no longer intelligence. It is purely it's just news. Now, I'm going to take that one step further here. Releasing classified information, intelligence, classified information is a felony. Um, so those people in the government or in privileged positions who have intelligence uh, can be cross prosecuted for 10 up to 10 years per incident. So you release 10 documents, that's 100 years. If you happen to do it during wartime in a war environment, it's actually punishable by death. So it is actually really serious business. And I bring it up because I just want you to think when you're reading the news, when you're watching TV, when you're going through all this information, and you think you're like you have this front row seat to decision making being done in Department of War, State Department, uh, the executive office, Congress, countries around the world. You don't. You're not getting anything special. And I don't mean that as an insult to you by any means. I just want you to understand that you're only getting the information because they want you to have the information or they want that information out there because somebody who's playing the same intelligence game with them, another world leader, governments, political opponents, investors, a bunch of people on the other end, by releasing that information, one, they could be, it could be a tripwire to like, if you see this on the TV, this means this, this, that. Um, but most of the time, it's kind of like adjusting the playing field, releasing information out there tactically, adjust. So if you thought you knew a bunch of information and then it just came out, or a bunch of intelligence, and then it just came out on the news, so you can either think to yourself, like it's game theory. Okay, now that they're releasing this information, that means that what we thought was actually intelligence was not intelligence. So maybe the opposite is true, or maybe they're releasing it just so that they can make us question it. Like there's so many different ways. Um, Intelligence is generally a gray matter situation. It's like it's not clear. Um, it's information. What you do with that information is, where the leverage lies, how you deal with that information is all of that. So, with that being said, I we have a pretty nice trade on in crude oil, and I'm going to talk about where the potential is on this trade's already hit its standard systematic trading profit target. And yes, I am the systematic guy, but one, two, three times a year, there comes a trade that the opportunity, not the certainty, the opportunity of the trade turns into something really potentially big. We are there right now in crude. And this week in the comm center in Macrop's comm center, I released this trade. We got filled, and immediately it went straight to its profit target. Now it's beyond its profit target, and the opportunity for this one to become one of the biggest trades of the year is there. Now we also did um, we did this earlier the year with the war earlier in the Middle East. And well, let me just get to the chart before we kind of dig too much into all of this. So this is crude oil. This is the front month, December crude oil. We got in over here at 57, I think it was 44. On this systematic trade, this is the curvy trading system. So it's a mean reversion system that works excellently in what I call the neutral market regime. Neutral market regime is mostly just a regime that is um, kind of boring. And if we were to like take a look, you know, this is when crude went to negative, and then for the last since the summer or so of 2022, it's in essence just been in this range. Okay. Let's see if I can find there we go. It's kind of been in this like little box right here. Let's call it 70, maybe 73, 75, down to like 50. Okay. Not exactly, exciting um trading, but it's neutral, and for that whole period of time it's been neutral. What has worked? Mean reversion trading, up down up down up down up down. Now it's a big range, and it makes a lot of money. uh that's kind of it. Let me show you two. We This year we've taken three trades in crude. We went short crude up here from the 70s level, rode it down to 60 or so, um and then exited. That was a simple trade. There was no edge in this trade. In hindsight, there was, but I saw no edge in staying in that trade any longer. And you can see that eventually it went and went from being a 2 hour trade to, the max it went was 5 hour. But we got our 2 hour out of it, and that's all I was looking for. Then we had the tariffs and all that sort of stuff, and we had another trade kickoff. I think it was actually over here, right here. Yeah. We got long at the beginning of May, and this one I held on to catch a good amount of it. The 2 hour target was actually right in here. We held on. And then what happened from there? We're in the neutral magazine. We're coming out of the tariff stuff. And then the Israel-Iran war kicks off. And yeah, we actually overstayed our welcome. This thing went up to a 4R. I think we got up somewhere, got out somewhere in here. There was a couple of adds to the position. But again, we didn't do anything spectacular. The war was over real quick. And for the next 6 months or so, it's just been in this kind of sideways action until this week. Last week, we started looking at getting into crude. Eventually, we got in on, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday, and immediately crude. We get in at 57.44. Immediately, first day, this thing goes up to it goes up to 60. Next day, it goes up to 62. And then today, we're still up there. If you're doing this trade normally, you're in and you're out right here, and you're happy and you're good, and you just beautiful trade. But right now, we are in a geopolitical position to where this could turn into a massive trade. And so I'm willing to take the easy money that we've, locked in here on crude. Well, we haven't locked it in. I moved it up to break even, the stop. So it's a break even at worse at the moment. But if things play out as I believe, and I'm going to kind of lay out a scenario here, we could see crude really take off. So let's go to this real quick. Let me change I put together a little presentation. is. Okay. Crude slippery slope. Haha, how original. Thanks, Chris. What a title. Um, what a advertising genius, marketing genius you are, Chris. Um, thank you. Let's go. Okay, so again, this is our layout. Um, that trade is my foundational curvy trade. It's a mean reversion trade. I like to have, 5 to 6 different strategies working together. We've got slow trend, fast trend, slow momentum, fast momentum, slow mean reversion, fast mean reversion, and then carry in the middle. But we won't talk about that. Um, this one is it, it is a mean reversion. It's a fast. I'm sorry, this is a slow mean reversion system. So it takes more than a couple of days for this to play out. Usually a week or two. This trade played out in like 2 days. That's rare. Usually it's more like a week. Um, Average win 2R, average loss 1R. It has about a 50% win rate. Like I said, we at the beginning back in January we had a 2R trade. The Israel Iran timeframe we had another 2R trade. Um, and so the thing about crude is that when real geopolitics are happening, like big events, I should say, in the globe are happening, crude is the thing that is expressing that. You can use interest rates, you can use metals, but crude typically is the most impacted and the most volatile. You can see this was, 9/11. This thing started to oil really started to ramp up. There's a monthly chart on crude, so each bar represents a whole month. You can see after 9/11, it kicks up. Iraq invasion kicks up really hard. We go from like 50 up to 110, have a bit of a pullback, and then it's up to 180 before, right at the global financial crisis, uh, drops down and then spends 5 or so years sideways. During the commodity crisis, it kind of breaks down again. During COVID, we have this negative interest rate thing. And from there, it instantly turns around and goes from, -20, or let's just call it zero, to 100 during the Russia-Ukraine. When that kicked off, after the war kicks off, it goes sideways because the anticipation of it is oftentimes and like the initial action is what kicks off the big move. Then everything is kind of like, okay, this is real. We have to readjust all of our risk, or we start adjusting all of our risk as we head into the event. The event happens, people are, you have people are like, okay, the event's here, exit your positions. You have people um, who are like headliners and they're like, oh, we got to get in now. And then you have hedging and you have like a multitude of different things leading up to the event, a multitude of different things of after the event. And typically what's happening here is after an event when, the Russia-Ukraine thing kind of happened and then it was done. Whereas Iraq, we were, okay, Iraq. And then in 2004, Iraq turned into something that we weren't expecting. And that's what caused this, like, from a simple regime change in the country to, a nice long insurgency where it went completely, we went from this no risk environment or small risk environment to now, can't get the oil out of Iraq. Iran's an even bigger enemy. Like all these different things started to happen to oil, and it caused the price to go all the way up to about 180. Um, we have the surge and global financial crisis at the same time. Big surprise. That stuff kind of happened, and then everything kind of calms down. So after an event, if the event kind of happens as planned, and especially when we're talking about the event being affecting oil, not so much the event being, military continuation or all that other stuff, but how it affects the asset we're talking about here. That's how it is. So right now, we had you can see the Israel-Iran war was a quick spike and right back in. So it wasn't that big of a deal. Didn't really affect oil, didn't affect much. Um, so what we're looking at right now, though, is Venezuela. This is action in the Americas, and um, there's something, and we'll get to actually a map study here a little bit better, but what we can see with crude is, or with Venezuela is it doesn't seem to be stopping. This is headlines from, late September to into October, mid-October. Um, Earlier this week, the United States issued a travel advisory for Trinidad and Tobago due to potential threats related to the conflict with Venezuela. It is one of the staging areas for U.S. Southern Command forces preparing for the invasion. So let's just go to a quick map. And so this is Venezuela right here. This is Trinidad and Tobago. Okay. So it's kind of this like the closest thing to get out. Yesterday, Trump says he doesn't believe that we're going to ask for a declaration of war. Uh, they're just going to continue to kill people who are bringing drugs into our country. Um, okay. That's a lot of firepower they have in the AO. So, yesterday again, he says we'll be seeing land action. So, we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs in the country. Then he has a press release. We will be seeing land action in Venezuela soon. This is that gray area I'm talking about. So, oftentimes you'll see the president go off on a tangent. He'll get asked a question and he goes on to these tangents where he's like really just talking, right? It's my opinion that a lot of that is actually the reporters are asking the questions of that have to do with intelligence that he is not actually going to be talking about, and so he kind of wears people down with this long monologue or onto like salacious subjects that the media loves to chew on. uh not that you know not that not that that stuff isn't interesting or whatever. It's just that, moving, working with real intelligence, something it has consequences, and so it typically is informative to see when he's asked something and he kind of goes on rambling about things. He also does that on other times too. So it's not exactly, you can't say every time he rambles, it's intelligence that he's obfuscating or something like that. It's not that. What I'm just saying is that there is times when he'll ask a direct question and he ends up on a whole other tangent, and then follows up with something like this. We will be seeing land action in Venezuela soon. Like blah 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 blah. I didn't know how to answer it. I couldn't, like I couldn't come up with the words that I could use that would, be what was needed to adjust the chessboard. And then, speaking with his staff, his cabinet, other people, he can come out with, um, something that maybe is a little more. And this one was actually, I believe this one was timed before. So you can say, we will be seeing action very soon. And then, in a press conference, he's talking about other stuff and he's just kind of like open mic, doing crowd work like a comedian. A lot of that is that's what it is. Um, and then today, uh, not the Department of Defense, Department of War, DOW, has announced that the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, which is currently in the Mediterranean, is going to be moved to Southcom, which is in uh, heading I believe, to the Caribbean area. The Iwo Jima ARG is already there, Amphibious Ready Group, and so like what you can see here is you have a real aircraft carrier here. Okay, I don't know, is that a I don't know what flag that is, or what it's doing. Uh, but that those are real aircraft. You've got that diagonal takeoff lane, right? So this is where the F-18s, F-35s, everything, they take off, they do their thing, and then here's that main, landing strip here with the tail hook. Here is a LHD, landing helo dock. So they mostly have, this is the Marine thing. There's, a couple thousand, there's like a company plus, it's a battalion landing team is kind of in this little path right here. Um, Usually, this would be like an ARG, the size of an ARG, these three generally. And then this whole thing is like a uh, um, carrier group. So amphibious ready group is like three, generally speaking, and then the carrier group is much like it's both. It's not only the Marines coming in with their firepower, but it's also a lot of naval air power comes along with it. So they're expected to be meeting up with the assets in Southcom within the Caribbean. So in this general area. While we take a look, if we here's something interesting. Just let me riff on this for a little bit for a second. We'll be seeing Land Nash in Venezuela. He kind of does this like talking thing, right? Um, One thing that's happened with all of this that's going on is, one thing that they've talked about was, the southern border and access to the United States. This whole area was very loosely patrolled. The Panama Canal was kind of like a way to just travel through the world, right? So it's too far. Can we go to China? It's too far to travel. So you travel, you're trying to ship to China or from China. The best route is through the Panama Canal, right? Right in here. Well, if you are doing, let's say you're shipping to anywhere, in this region, which really exposes the United States southern flank. If you're shipping anywhere within that region, let's call it drones, let's call it nukes, let's call it hypersonic jets, anything that's military to, let's say, Venezuela, to maybe Ecuador, Peru, Colombia, because understand Colombia is a different place at the moment because their president is former narco terrorist, former. United States basically said we're going to stop payment to Colombia earlier this week, and Colombia called their ambassador to the United States back to Bogota this week. So what's in Colombia? They've been friends forever. I don't know what's going on there. That's something. There's conflicts going on down here in Ecuador. There's conflicts down in Peru right now. Um, and all of that is happening while we are getting all of this U.S. buildup into that region. So it has the potential. Venezuela has the potential to become a very hot project. And so I kind of laid out my hypothesis of what it could end up being based on kind of historicals and numbers of thing. Yeah, this is fine. So if we're kind of this place right here, U.S. Venezuela stalemate, um, the idea is that we don't know if there's going to be a war or not. Um, the threat is there. There's other things going on that could potentially be it, and so this $60 to $70 range on crude is probably is about where we're at right now. We're in the low range of it. We're the 60, 70 area. So If we start at if there's a tax in Venezuela, I would say right away we get bid on crude, and that opens up to a $90 range. So a 50% move from here, which $30 on 60 is a 50% move. It takes you up to that $90 range. Um, if we end up in uh like ground troops and a real scenario in Venezuela, now we're looking at 100% move from our current levels in crude oil. So anywhere up to $120 per barrel. Okay. That's kind of like the black and white steps of what could it, and this is set in Jello. I'm going to continue to update this as we get new information. I'll continue to update my threat matrix and kind of the things I'm monitoring to see what what's going on, and then like where you already see the natty gas took off up like 10% in one day last week. So this whole thing right here is already played out. We're there. So the next thing, you know, energy ETFs, WTI, we're in WTI. The next step is shale and gold. Gold is taking a break. So if let's say you're still loving gold, maybe you're still in gold after that big move. If there is a full intervention, you should get a positive move back in gold. So that could bring more life back into gold, but continue, the price of WTI up to 120. Now, this is where it gets interesting because Venezuela and Cuba, let's not forget where we are in the region. This is Venezuela, this is Cuba, this is the United States. These two countries are kind of anti-United States, funded by Russia, China, the I forgot the term for it, but it's Iran, China, North Korea, chinks. Is that the term that they were? Crinks. Crinks is the term that it kind of so China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, crink is the term, the acronym, or whatever that they're using for that. So if we start looking at that happening, you can get up to 150 a barrel. Uh, Israel and Iran kicks off. This is what that looks like. Let's say China uses the opportunity that the U.S. is focused on, a Monroe Doctrine, a focus on the Americas, North and South America. Um, then China says, you know what, we're gonna go ahead and take advantage of that. And so they jump on and they go, work on Taiwan there. And then, Russia Ukraine escalation while we're doing our things, or Russian attacks in Europe. One thing that I will say is the US has been backing down from NATO, um, stepping back from how historically it has been. Russia, in the last couple of weeks, maybe last month, Russia has gotten a lot more aggressive, testing the airspace around NATO, and that's all there. So here's kind of my layout. We're already here. This is crude all the way down here, 61. If an actual, so yesterday they flew B1s, I believe B1s down to the border, turned off or down to the area, full, flight tracker. They turned off their transponders for a little bit, so that they could do their own stuff, and then turn around and came home. Um, but the that's not too far away. My speculation, $75 or so, we start hitting targets. Now, if it gets kinetic, meaning there are attacks, that's great. But what I want to be looking out for mostly, I want to be looking out for the 400, 700,000 barrels per day that Venezuela produces to the global economy. It's only, 0.5% to 1%, 50 bips to 100 bips of global production. But if that got taken offline, that's an extra $7 to $12 per barrel. Okay. If Colombia is affected, so let's say we, take Colombia offline, or I'm sorry, Venezuela oil production offline, and then Colombia, there's action there. Now it's spilled off to a second country. And we've already, the US has already shot uh, vessels in the Pacific. So, Venezuela is not in the Pacific. The Pacific, the only countries in the Pacific would be Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Chile, right? And, down here, maybe not even. If they're doing them over here, then that's these countries being involved. So it's no longer if they're saying we're going after drugs, guess what? That's not just Venezuela. That's Colombia, that's Ecuador, that's Peru, um, and then that's Mexico. So there's some things that we need to be paying attention to. Again, um, in my mind, if there's a full war in Venezuela, which does affect or kind of like scares the rest of those southern South American countries into, or maybe we are doing actual action there. So let's say we do, just think about it. Like we've done most action off Venezuela. Now let's say we do a ground attack off Venezuela, and we're already doing water, anti-drug ops in the ocean uh, on the Pacific coast. So that's, Colombia and Ecuador were the two people, passport holders or residents, I guess, um, who were hit on that one. So the next step would be, okay, are they going to come in and hit us? They've already taken money away from Colombia. Um, I believe the U.S. Embassy was had some attacks against it this week there's a big trial in Bogota against the former president, one of the former presidents of Colombia. And it's kind of hot, domestically in Colombia. Things are very rough there, rougher than they've been for in quite some time. I used to live there. I spent almost a decade living there, so I'm familiar with quite a lot that's going on. Anyway, um, that's that's kind of where we're looking right now. Again, we have a low risk entry at, when we got in 50, say 57.44. It's already up into the 60s, I believe. Uh, and then the next move would be into the 70s if there is an actual uh, invasion I'm sorry, actual action, right? Yeah, 60, $70 if is kind of where we're at right now. If they start hitting targets, let's go and take a look at the Google Earth. One thing we want to do is let's just look at the country. Okay. Guyana has and Suriname have a lot of oil. Um, these are, kind of uh, backwaters, I guess, is the no offense to either country, of course, but they're not really advanced in their production, in their in and their sale of the oil. They're looked at as a target from like Brazil. I think Suriname is French, is a French colony or a former French colony. Um, and so there's some, a lot of French entrants in Suriname. Uh, but let's take a look at Venezuela. Venezuela here, Caracas is all the way at the very top, very convenient. As far as like not a huge distance to travel to get in to the capital. That doesn't mean that the capital is where everything's at. It's just if there's a regime change, that's where you change the regime. The head of the regime is there in Caracas. Doesn't mean it's going to be a cakewalk. you look at it, and I'm going to do a kind of a slight map um, analysis here. And the Caribbean's not too treacherous as far as the type of landing that you could do here. It's a soft beach. We have a harbor here. Um, it's Caribbean water, so it's not big aggressive Pacific or Atlantic coastal type of obstacles. You can see that there's MSR freeways right along it right there. So, getting and then there's the international airport. There's the big airport right there. So you've got one, two, three main runways here, right off the ocean. So you could get in, this is the Ranger Battalion. One of their like main missions is to airport security. The Marine Corps, that's part of our mission. Pack 2 with the MUSOCs, the ARGs, these amphibious ready groups have Marines. The MUSOC's job is to come in and do kind of the entire military's. You think of the Marine Corps in this MUSOC, the troops who are deployed in the ARG. Think of them as the entire capability of the U.S. military in a small package. So, Shaquille O'Neal, 7 foot something, what, 7'4"? Um, so, Michael Jordan's 6'6", but he can still dunk, block shots, and you know what I mean? It's like we're not getting the Shaquille O'Neal of capabilities, like the biggest, toughest guy in the middle. We're getting a smaller version that can do a lot of those things. Not as great as like like the Marine Corps can't do as great as all of the Air Force or all of the Army or all of the Navy, but they can do a portion of it. And so MUSOC, Marine Expeditionary Unit Special Operations Capable, our job is to just be that, like, boop, go, like a very hard end of the or sharp end of the spear right away, get in and do a lot of stuff. You think about special operations being like, hit that target, get that high, that certain Osama bin Laden or whatever, like get out, do that sort of thing. That's a very surgical thing. The Marine Corps' special operations capable thing is like we're, or order of magnitude smaller unit, maybe in more, we're a much smaller unit to come in and do that. Like we're going to do an amphibious landing. We're going to take the airport. We're going to have aircraft come in and pound it. We're going to secure the route into the area. They're going to come. Now, this is the part that actually gets interesting. So, let's say we're just focused on taking the regime leadership and replacing it. So the target is the White House, Palacio Blanco, and like the military academy, or the government, the Pentagon version, the Venezuelan Pentagon, different bases, anti-aircraft, and then make sure services. This is another key thing that the MU is very capable of, or these MUSOCs are very capable of making sure that citizen services, water, electricity, food, things like that, are maintained. And so that's what makes it a lot different than like Army Special Forces, SEAL teams or whatever. SEALs are part of the MUSOC, by the way. Um, so um, you have a whole bunch of capabilities in this like really mobile package that is designed to move from an aircraft, well, not an aircraft carrier, but from naval uh, support. And then that naval support is that they can generate clean water, right? They've got the desal plants on those ships. Um, they can receive supplies and store them. They've got naval gunfire, so they can, shoot from the ships into targets. They can launch aircrafts. They can replace troops. They can augment troops. They can do a whole bunch of things. You basically have a U.S. military base suddenly, like right where off your shore. to do all these sort of things. And let's say you needed some specific capabilities that the Army can only provide. Well, here you go. Fly the Army in from, wherever over here. Boom, get them onto our ships, get them organized, and then, get them into the country to those sort of things. Um, so let's get back to just a little bit. And look, this is just me. This is just Chris in my background going through it, looking at it. I don't have any special capabilities or anything like that. I'm not giving away any intelligence. This is nothing that um, there's nothing that the Venezuelan government can't find out open source. You can't find all this stuff out open source, just general ideas. Last weekend, they did this big amphibious landing and talked about all these capabilities at Camp Pendleton, California. And it was just live streamed on, like, online news, whatever. So it's all wide out in the open. This is nothing special. This is not intelligence that I'm giving you. I'm just giving you like this idea. So, what's likely going to happen is you got these ships out here, okay? They're going to start hitting targets from the air with drones, with F-35s, with the B-1, B-2, B-52, those sort of things may take out targets as needed, that are just going to take out anti-aircraft or disable movement. Okay, so think about this. Let's say we're coming in to take the presidential palace, put in the elected president, and we're going to provide security and support. Well, right away they've got like these reaction forces who are going to come in. There's forces in the city. There's going to be military bases out and around whose job is to, kind of do all these other things. We got other airports around the country. Venezuela is not just one little town. It's not Caracas. It's, there's a lot of different municipalities throughout the country that have their own airports, that have, hundreds of thousands of people. A lot of it is right there available, on, and so we'll want to have to like block those targets from rushing in and being a problem, but we also need to make sure that they keep their power, their water, communications as best we can. Like if it is a threat, that some of these regions have power, or communications or something like that, yeah, we may just go in and shut down the power grid. We may shut down the cell grid. We may shut things down because of the safety of it. But I mean, unfortunately, Venezuelans have been used to very little, um, or issues with the power for the last 20 something years since Chavez took over. So the next thing that makes this thing, like a challenge, why we can't just be like, let's go. Again, you look at it and you think to yourself, wow, that's easy. Land, you got an airport here, you got a road into town, it's all great. But what you don't see, it's hard to see. This whole area is mountains. This is elevation. I don't have the um, elevation, the height, but you don't see like look in there. You don't see these roads, right? That's Rio Cerro Grande, which is like, it's like a mountain river, a big mountain river. uh, that's kind of the translation. Um, into flowing into the ocean. That's a lot of that is really just big mountains from this coastal area. This whole coastal area is connected through this tunnel, and this tunnel is about a 15 kilometer, if I remember, uh 15-kilometer tunnel from the airport. So you go from the international airport to downtown Caracas to your hotel or whatever it is. You're talking 15 to 30-minute drive, probably like 30-minute drive. Maybe an hour, I don't know, depending on traffic. But that's it. Like there's not these easy, you don't see a bunch of routes, right? It's that main route. So if this tunnel, and it's just right here, from here to here is the tunnel, There it is. It's you drive up the mountain, and then cut through the mountain. If you go over the mountain, I believe it's a couple of hours. It might even be longer um, to do the mountain drive. Now I don't have personal experience doing it, um, but if this is taken out, and that would be one of the first things that I would do if I'm, if I'm Maduro or his regime, is boom, lock it down, and I would wait for troops to be inside it, and then I would just blow it up, right? And just wipe out a however many troops I could and lock them down. And so what you have in that point, you have a recovery mission. You got to get your guys out of there, right? Which detracts from the main mission of coming and do it. So my guess is it's probably going to be a helo operation coming in, right? So you come in, get the airport, seize the airport, remove the airport. Maybe you don't even do that. Maybe you just keep it running. I don't know. But you start building up. Um, this is you've got an aircraft carrier, which is far more risky uh, air ops than a international airport. So I'm guessing you probably want to get that airport. Once you get that, then you can control, who gets out of the country. And you're going to want to control a lot of the different airports around the country in a similar sort of way. So you don't have people you're going after escaping. Um, and then, you know, the helo assault elements can come right in. Um, and that's when you get the real special operation type units that are coming in and finding Maduro and his cabinet and hunting him and replacing him in there. You probably get like a staging base, a military base somewhere over here, um, or somewhere in the country. Anyway, that's kind of what it looks like. It's not just like a pop in a couple helicopters in the middle of the night, hit the palace, take Maduro and a handful of his people and whisk them out of the country, like what happened in Haiti in 2005, I believe. Um, there's real anti-aircraft, there's real military, there's real organization. You've got Russia, Iran, China, North Korea. Like I said, the Crink block has been in here. Hezbollah has been in here quite a bit. And then you've got the ELA and the FARC. You've got all of Colombia. Um, you know, not paramilitary, but the terrorist organizations right over here. There's a lot, and then Brazil's kind of a frenemy going on. So anyway, long video. I just want to kind of get into that sort of stuff and play it out. We may wake up one day and you know, President of the United States is swimming in the pool at the Palacio Blanco in Venezuela, and it all just happened before our eyes, and I made it sound too complex. Either way, we've got ourselves the potential for a very high, you risk $2 to make 60 um, on this trade, um, as an investor, as people involved in the world. Who knows? Does this turn into World War III? Yeah, could be. In that, I hope I didn't ruin your weekend. I hope it made your weekend better. Love you all. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye.